Okay, great. We'll start on time. Good morning and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to China Focus Global Life Science Summit. The global pandemic limited travels for in-person conferences. It changed how we communicate. However, it won't stop our conversations. Thanks for making it today and the following week. As previous years, our China Focus in January will focus on information and experience sharing about China pharmaceutical industry. This year, we've organized 10 live panels and talks, as well as 2 additional on-demand panels. Today's program will include 3 panel discussions. The first one will be Dawn of Chinese Pharmaceutical Innovation Market. The second one will be 2020 Review and the 2021 Outlook. What are Chinese investors looking for? The third one will be building the next biotech unicorn in China. Let me introduce the panel moderator, Paul Zhang, of the first panel discussion. Paul is a senior leader in the life science consulting industry. He is currently partner of Blue Star Bioadvisors. He was a partner at Essen Associates and led management roles at Clearfield Healthcare Partners. Paul has led over 800 engagements serving clients from startups to top 10 pharmaceutical companies, integrating scientific outcome with commercial industry know-how to generate experience-based, actionable advice to global clients. He's also spent 6 years in the pharmaceutical industry in preclinical research and pipeline strategy at multiple pharmaceutical companies. We have 4 executive leaders from news-making biotech this year on the panel. They are Ms. In Huang, CEO from Legend Biotech, Ms. Wenjin Sun, VP from JW Therapeutics, Ms. Adu Deshpande, Chief Strategy Officer and Head of US Operations from Harbor Biomed, and last but not the least, Ms. Weiming Tang, Global Business Head and Executive VP from IMAP Biopharma. Welcome. Paul, it's your call.
Okay, thank you, Xinxing. Thank you for the invitation. It's a privilege to host this panel again with China Focus, and it's truly a privilege to have these 4 distinguished guests on the panel. I will, just do a very quick sort of addition to my experience, and then ask my panelists to talk a bit about their company. They're also a very illustrious career, and then we'll dive right into today's panel. Right, so I have been a consultant to the pharma industry for the last 20 years. A lot of times helping clients figure out sort of market entry strategy, commercial strategy, and have been working in the China market for the last 15 years or so. And I've sort of seen 3 stages of the Chinese market, and that'll be a good leading into sort of today's conversation. I want to use today's panel to really have a conversation with the 4 panelists to talk about what is the sort of 4th stage. What is the next 5 years for Chinese pharmaceutical markets? What do we foresee with the innovative aspect of commercial market, given the sort of new market dynamics, right? So we'll pause on all those interesting topics. I'll let the panelists give a bit more introduction of their terrific companies and their own careers. I'm just going to go with the sequence on my screen. So I have Atul first. So Atul, go ahead first.
Sure. Thank you, Paul. Good morning and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here on this panel. I'm Atul Deshpande. I'm the Chief Strategy Officer and Head of US Operations for Harbor Biomed. I'm a neuroscientist by training. Did my PhD at UC Irvine, a short postdoc, and then spent about 10 years in consulting, working across the value chain of pharma, all the way from early R&D to commercialization, even all the way to supply chain. Then I moved from consulting into industry. I worked with Sanofi for about 9 years, 3 of which I spent based out of Shanghai and managing the R&D portfolio for all of Asia Pacific for Sanofi. And then the last 3 years I spent commercializing Dupixent across the world, both for atopic dermatitis as well as asthma. Harbor Biomed is about 4 years old, established December 2016, and we just went IPO last month. Very exciting times. From a portfolio perspective, we have a risk mitigated portfolio ranging from late stage clinical assets in phase 2, phase 3 to early stage clinical assets, phase 1 in oncology and immunology, as well as a rich R&D pipeline following through in the next few years. So all in all, we see a huge potential both in the China market for the assets that are late stage for us, 9036, which is in dry eye disease, one of the increasing issues across the world, not just in China, but given that all of us are spending so much time in front of the screens, dry eye disease incidence has been increasing significantly. And we were doing some research into trying to understand the marketplace. And over just the last 9 months to a year, the numbers have significantly increased, given that all of us are just spending, working from home and spending so much time in front of the screens. The next one that we have in our portfolio is a really interesting molecule, an anti-FcRn receptor, tanfanercept, and that is also, a portfolio and a product strategy where we have multiple indications, and then a few other assets and molecules down in the pipeline. Very happy to be here and looking forward to exchanging our thoughts and our perspectives on the China market. Thank you.
Thank you, Atul. Wenming?
Thank you, Paul, for the invitation and organizer for extending, giving me the opportunity. My name is Wenjin Tan. I'm head of business development for IMAB. IMAB is an innovation-based biotech company with headquarters in Shanghai. And as you can know that IMAB is listed 2020 at the NASDAQ, where current market cap, it's about $4 billion. The company is, as I mentioned, is really innovative focused company, which we did it 2 ways. One is introduce global innovative products to China market. In the meantime, we also discover, develop, and partner out our own innovative products. We want to be competitive, and we want to compete on the global market because we believe the value has to come up from the global market. And then we, we also have like to work with global innovative biotech companies. If you have interest in China market, work with us, and then we will bring your innovative product to the new market. Thank you.
Thank you, Wenming. All right, next, Ying.
Hello, thank you, Paul, and also the organizer for inviting us as well. My name is Ying Huang, and I'm the CEO of Legend Biotech. Legend Biotech was founded in 2014, and the company was then incorporated in 2015. In 2016, we initiated our first phase 1, first in human study for the drug, which was then called LCAR-B38M, and now it's called the JNJ-4528. We also just recently received a generic name called Cilta-cel, which is a BCMA targeting autologous CAR T therapy for relapse and refractory myeloma. In 2017, the company published for the first time the data from 35 patients in the Legend 2 phase 1 study in China. And based on that data, Legend entered into a global partnership agreement with Janssen Pharmaceuticals, the J&J pharmaceutical arm, in December 2017. And in 2018, we initiated the registration phase 2 trials in both China, called CARDIFFEND-1 trial, and also in the US called CARTITUDE-1 trial. So in December of last year, we actually published for the first time all 97 patients from the US CARTITUDE-1 trial. And again, based on that data, our partner J&J started the rolling submission of BLA filing for this molecule in the US with the FDA. And that's our lead program. We also have some our own proprietary phase 1 candidates that are going through phase 1 trials in China. We have 7 ongoing trials right now, focusing on both hematology and also some solid tumor cancer programs. We also recently started 2 phase 1 programs in China for allogenic CAR T. One is a allogenic CD20 targeting CAR T for diffuse large B cell. The other one is a BCMA targeting gamma delta allogenic CAR T program for multiple myeloma. So that's where we are, and we were listed in NASDAQ in June of 2020. And again, we're very pleased to present our findings here and discuss the opportunities with everyone here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Wenjin.
Thank you for the opportunity to be with this distinguished panel here. So my name is Wenjin Sun, head of business development at JW Therapeutics. So JW Therapeutics, it's a leading cell therapy company in China, as our peer, the Legend here, and we are working focused on the cell therapy to bring the cutting through the technology and the products to Chinese patients. The company was founded in 2016, initially through a venture between WuXi Biotech and Juno part of BMS. And it is spun off through a series of fundraising, and it's being listed on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange in November last year, 2020, November 2020. And with a market cap over $1 billion. Our lead product is a CD19-based CAR T. It has been through the clinical phase 1 and phase 2 in China, and that's in the BLA review right now in the Chinese FDA. And it has excellent efficacy and also excellent safety profile as well. So aiming to very excited to bring the product as a potential best in class to the patients in China. We have a portfolio of both hemo and the solid tumor in cell therapy as well. And so for myself, so I have a background in clinical medicine many years ago. Then I worked in research R&D at Merck, both in the US and in China. And before I joined JW, I worked for several years at the Gates Foundation, focusing on the infectious disease vaccine areas. So it's very exciting to be with the group here. Thank you.
Thank you, Wenjin. Well, terrific. It's really an amazing group of companies and group of senior executives. So as I started off, right, I've been working sort of cross-border between US and China for the last almost 15 years. And I think the China market went through 3 stages. At the, sort of 10 years ago, it was a sort of heady days when any sort of a US portfolio, they can be launched in China. You put sales reps, you add every sales rep, you generate a certain amount of revenue. It was a boom days. And then sort of, it went through a down period, the compliance issues, GSK and a number of other companies ran into challenges, and that kind of made the regulatory environment more contractory and made the regulatory process tougher, extra steps for foreign companies to register their products. And that sort of really put a damper on multinationals' interest in the China market. But I think in the last 3 years, it went through a sort of rebirth. And it started with, I think, in my view, started with the regulatory, with the policy reforms. The registration process became more streamlined. The extra steps for foreign products were taken away, more aligned with the FDA process. And very importantly, the reimbursement process, the NRDL listing process was accelerated, right? As you know, now it's every year a new product can negotiate to get onto the NRDL process and access the entire Chinese population. And that appears to have been very much a game changer. A lot of investment has come into the biotech space, as we've seen globally, as well as on Chinese companies. All 4 of these companies have gone through a lot of success in fundraising, and then also I think the domestic innovation has gone through a lot of incubation period and is sort of at a stage of breakthrough, right? We've seen deals that Women's Company, East Company, a lot of these companies have had domestic products that are actually licensed out internationally. So a lot of interest. That brought a lot of interest. A lot of U.S. China deals. A lot of U.S. companies are licensing their rights to China to monetize it. So it feels like this is a tremendously positive period for Chinese innovative product market, for Chinese biotech companies. I want to sort of pose this question to all of you and see what do you feel is the sort of the momentum in the innovative products in the China market. Products are sort of getting to market soon, right? And now it's the test to see, all the investor enthusiasm, all the great efforts that companies have made through R&D. Will it generate commercial payoff? And what are the opportunities? What are some of the hurdles? So let me toss that out as the first question. Anybody wants to pick that up first? Atul?
Sure, Paul. I can get us started on that. So I think, in terms of the growth for the China market, as you rightly pointed out, there were a kind of optimism about 10 years ago, and then we went through, a special period in between where there were some challenges. But I think the policy changes and what the government is doing and what the industry is doing in conjunction with the government in China has been really transformative. And I see a really, optimistic scenario growing up in China as we see forward from here. And there are a couple of reasons associated with it. I mean, look at the policies that have been put into place. As you outlined, everything is getting accelerated at this point in time. We have, drugs that are innovative drugs in the global market that are making their way into China as quickly as possible. I mean, I remember, when I was there in 2012, 2013, the drug lag was about 8 to 10 years before any innovative drug would make it to China. And now it's pretty much at the same time as a global launch that people are looking and companies are looking to launch a drug in China, and sometimes even earlier in China to begin with and then go to global. So I think, that change of mindset, that change of policies and the support has been extremely useful from the industry perspective. Now, the way the industry has taken advantage of that has been the innovation that has been coming out of China. So it's not only a one way that used to be the case where, global innovation trying to make its way into China, but also Chinese domestic companies have the capital, have the resources, have the talent to really make a difference and push for innovation. And at least in our scenario, for Harbor Biomed, we have seen that we actually are a global company. We have a footprint in the US, Europe, and China, but the China setup is a much bigger setup in terms of talent, in terms of people, and in terms of resources that we dedicate to, all the work that is being done on the innovative side of things. I think that's the driver that is going to, really push the momentum going forward from here. In addition to that, you also have, manufacturing capabilities that are coming up that many of the other countries and many of the other companies don't have in the Western world. So bringing all of this together, it's going to be a really interesting time for the next 5 to 10 years for the industry as well as the government, and especially the patients in China to get access to innovation. Now, on the challenge side of things, as you rightly pointed out, the pricing has been, something that has bothered a lot of companies. And, with the NRDL being put into place, it definitely accelerates getting into the NRDL per year. But then the pricing pressures are something that are also being, thought about from an industry perspective, because as you know, any drug trying to come to market, takes 7 to 10 years to get to market, $1 billion, $1.5 billion to get to fruition for an innovative drug. And for that kind of resources and that kind of money to really bring on those innovative drugs, companies need that money. And so when there's pricing pressures, not just in China, but across the world, whether it's Europe, whether it's US, that is definitely going to, really put industry and companies into a rock and a hard place to really come up with those resources to drive that innovation. So I think, somewhere we see that optimism, but somewhere we see the challenges, and the crux of this conversation is going to be, how do we strike the right balance between those?
Yeah, well said, Atul. Yeah. Wenjin, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I just want to add in a few points of what Atul just said. I totally agree with Atul what you just said. You know, China has going through a lot of change. I think last 10 years, the pharmaceutical market change. China is unquestionably the #1 progressive country in the whole world. A lot of policy, and I would say all of the policy change is good for pharmaceutical innovation. It's still not to the point, I think, which will, I think, guarantee or is encouraging innovation risk taking yet, but it's definitely making a lot of progress. The pricing challenge is definitely there, but I'm confident that with the manufacturer and also the market there, it will be doable. There's quite a lot of interesting things. As if you look at the PD-1, if without China getting into the China-based company getting into the competition, the price is so much higher, and now dropped down to $50,000, which is benefiting China patient a lot. With that said, I mean, innovation is a key for any company in China in the future to survive or to grow. Without innovation, it's very, very challenging in the coming years, especially when NRDL, the pricing is almost cut to the bone for any those biosimilar or generic drugs. So in order to grow, folks, we have to be innovative, and also has to be truly innovative. And the country's policy has to make more change to truly encouraging innovation.
Right. And Ying and Wenjin, your portfolios are a little bit different, right? They're not PD-1s. They're certainly not a regular monoclonal antibody or a oral pill. So the question we are grappling here, on one hand, a lot of acceleration of reimbursement, but on the other hand, very drastic price cut. How do you think about your portfolio? Maybe Ying, you're gonna probably be the first. You guys are gonna launch very soon. Wenjin, how do you think about your portfolio in terms of the Chinese market?
Yeah.
Thanks for.
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Thanks for posing that question to us. So we already started our rolling submission in the US, and then J&J will submit also the MAA to EMA early this year. And then we also plan to submit to CDE for the marketing application, BLA application later this year as well. But I would say from our perspective, for now, in the very beginning of the commercial launch of cilta-cel, we probably will focus on the US market first, followed by maybe European and Japanese market, and probably followed by the Chinese market. The reason is right now, the autologous CAR T actually is characterized with a very relatively high cost of goods, right? If you follow the two CD19 targeting commercial therapies from both Novartis and from Gilead, nobody knows exactly, but I think people are kind of like in the industry are quoting that it's probably in the range of $100,000 in terms of the cost of manufacturing. So with that kind of cost, unless we can dramatically lower the cost, otherwise, I think it would be difficult for a CAR T to be reimbursed in the NRDL. So I think given the payment and also reimbursement landscape, right, as I mentioned, we likely will focus on the US market first. But I do think that, allo hopefully will represent a new direction for CAR T market in China. That is, if we can have some sort of breakthrough in bringing an allogenic CAR T to the Chinese market, when you're talking about the cost of manufacturing probably in the, I don't know, tens of thousands or even only thousands of dollars range, then I think the Chinese market will be much, much more important. And I do think at that kind of price point, we should be able to look into the reimbursement by NRDL, and then that will open up a huge market. But that's our initial thought.
Great. Wenjin, what are your thoughts in the
Yeah, actually, let me follow on with Ying's comments. Exactly, the one of the challenges, for cell therapy, one is really a challenge on the regulatory side because the product's a living cell by itself, right? So it's very different from a small molecule or the large molecule people typically traditionally see. So in terms of characterization of the products, it's quite CMC manufacturing is very challenging, and the process determines the product. So it's very important you have you need to have a very solid, I would say, process development, integrated process development and manufacturing, and the clinical development all together to ensure the quality and the efficacy safety of the products. On the other side is really the manufacturing cost. That's a common challenge facing all the cell therapy this moment. It's because of the material cost so high, right? So that's really limits the, how you're going to price the products. In the US, it's before the gene therapy come out, it was the highest priced product, oncology products for $40,000 to $400,000 to $500,000 a pop. But it's really but also has a superior efficacy as well for this resistant relapse patient that is also started the current treatment. So our products actually, it's a CD19 CAR T. It's a little bit different from Ying's products, BCMA, and it's in the Chinese BLA review process right now. And we are looking into the opportunities to commercialize the products in China as well. I mean, of course, that the pricing is a hot topic, and people are talking about this and what's a reasonable price that you can reflect the clinical value of the product, and also at the same time you make sure that it can be accessible to the patients and in China. So I think that before the product launch, I mean, no one knows what the product would be and that the price would be. I will put that way. But I think in a nutshell, it should reflect the clinical value of that one. On the long run, you have to look at the different ways to reduce cost, either from the material cost, different manufacturing platforms, the source of cell, allogenic approach, and also all kind of things you look at. It's like the analogy of this, they look at antibody industry 30 years ago, right? It's a very expensive, high cost, relatively lower product quality. But now with the evolution of the industry and the technology, it's such a sort of a common plate for the clinical medicine right now. Now, if you look at it, if you take the same analogy for cell therapy, I believe it's a very similar trend you will see in the future with more application adoption, lower manufacturing cost, more maturation of the product, and also a network of industry ecosystem that to support the industry to grow. But I agree with all the panelists. Now it's interesting to me over the years you observe the sort of a hurdle for the Chinese biotech pharma. I remember several years ago people were counting on how many years you get IND, the clinical approval permit, right? Then the next step you look at it, when are you going to get in the clinical? Then people talking about, what's the SAMP, RP, whatever, so now I think all this are solved. It's getting to a much faster approval. Now people talking about commercialization and pricing. Itself is, the challenge is still there. The self itself is progressing, in terms of evolution of the industry.
Right. So just very briefly to follow up on the two CAR T therapies, right? A very unique category. So what I heard is from strategy-wise, commercialization strategy-wise, either you hope to develop new products like allo that you can lower your costs, or you can go leverage higher price markets like US, or you have to really work on sort of the constraints of the Chinese market and try to launch products with a as attractive a price as possible. But you're sort of bound by these sort of constraints, right? Am I correct, Wenjin? I mean, your company, you're a JV, right? So your company is solely committed to the Chinese markets. Is that right?
I think for first product, yes, we have the rights for the Chinese market. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Got it. Yeah. Those are all terrific strategies, right? In those niche markets. I want to broaden that a little bit and bringing Atul and Wei Ming back to this conversation around sort of, accelerated access to mass population, but, significant competition in class and pricing. Does that sort of impact how you pick and choose your portfolio? How does that factor into what disease area, what mechanism, what products you prioritize in a broader portfolio? Atul, Wei-Ming?
Well, for me is that it definitely will impact our selection, but I-Mab is focusing on immunology and oncology. So we do not have a much like choice, right, from this point of view. But I think we select this field is because we believe in, and there is a strong unmet medical need in oncology and immunology, especially IO field in China. So, and also from commercial point of view, because oncology is life-threatening disease, and that will give you a little bit of pricing levy, I would say. But in the meantime, that if you do innovation, back to innovation yourself, this is truly your company founded, you discovered. I think that basically to keep the price a little bit lower in China, because that's what the China tax dollar or the policy may have a positive impact. That's a fair game in my personal view. And then you can, realize the whole innovation or innovative product value globally. That's what what I said in my previous statement.
Yeah, and I completely agree with Wei-Ming. I mean, from a portfolio perspective, again, similar to I-Mab, Harbour is also focused very much on immunology and immuno-oncology, because those are the hot areas where there's really unmet medical need still at this point in time. I mean, look at the standard of cares at this point. You're still within the lower range, definitely less than 50% response rates. With combinations, so on and so forth, you might be able to push those higher, but still not where we should be or could be. From oncology perspective. When you look at the immunology side of things, definitely, the next decade or so is going to be about immunology, because so many new therapies are coming to market, and there's so much of unmet need over there. So trying to, balance the portfolio and taking risk for being either first in class or best in class is where we have our, most of our focus on. So like I said before, it's a risk mitigated portfolio that we have designed for Harbour BioMed. There are certain molecules that are getting first in class, and with China rights trying to address that unmet medical need that Wei-Ming referred to, but then also global focus, because as we spoke, innovation is expensive. It takes a lot of money to get innovative drugs to market. And so if you just rely on the China market at this point in time, not taking into consideration the evolution from a pricing perspective, but today's pricing policies and everything else, it's not going to pay for the innovation. So when we want to go for a best-in-class or a first-in-class drug, we need to make sure, like Ying said, we need to look at the US market and the European markets and understand from that perspective what the unmet needs are, and bring those first and best to class molecules to those markets to begin with, so that we can continue to pay for the innovation. We can continue to bring innovative drugs to market, both across the world, but also in China. And that's where, balancing that portfolio, both in immunology and oncology, has been our focus over the last 4 years.
Yeah.
Well, can I just adding one more point is that Paul, Atul, I totally agree. I just reminded me another thing is that innovation actually, when we talk about it, we also try to bring the innovative product into China. And China pricing market is, its current state is what it is. So when you're talking about innovation, not only the product innovation, commercial innovation should also be encouraged. We have to be realistic, especially in our deal, the pricing pressure. Just be honest that current like high percentage of loyalties. Historically we have been the deal getting more and more expensive. You don't want it to be end up with paying, just doing the job without getting any profit, which is not going to be long-term survival strategy for any biotech companies. So that's actually a very challenging. Current is, I would say, classic BD strategy. Commercial market will have impact on business strategy. People has to be innovative in that area too.
Yeah, well said. And I know there's an important theme here in terms of China market versus, broader than China going global. And I want to pick up on that, but I want to stay on China market for a few more minutes. We all sort of cut our career in the US first, right? Before we sort of turn to China. And in the US market, there's historically been this concept of first in class versus best in class, right? In China, how does that play? How significant is first in class? Is there a best in class? How does the first in class and best in class differentiate? Maybe we can think about PD-1 as a category, but I would love to hear your thoughts on, how significant is first in class in China, given this sort of accelerated reimbursement cycle. Once every 2 years, you negotiate price again, and a lot of fast follow-on products coming on. Is that different from the US market?
I don't know if anyone else wants to chime in, but let me start with my thoughts here. I think from the strategy of first in class versus best in class. I mean, there's ample examples across the whole industry where first in class is great to go in if you have a great molecule and your strategy really works out in terms of launch and pricing and commercial and market access and everything. But there have been other cases where the second or the third molecule becomes the best in class and is able to even gain better market share or more market share than the first in class. And I think when you look at specifically the China perspective, at least at this point in time, given that it's an evolving market, I think it remains to be seen at this point in time whether the first in class versus the best in class market is going to differentiate itself too much differently than what we see in the US or the European market. You always gain that bigger market share. You get that additional time to establish yourself, to establish the footprint of the product and the utility of the product and additional data to support it. And I think that is what any physician, any reimbursement agency is going to look for, is what kind of efficacy data, what kind of safety data, what kind of additional information can the trials provide, so that you really believe in the efficacy and safety of the drug and therefore are able to reimburse that drug to the fullest extent. Coming in second in the NRDL, you're definitely going to face the pricing pressures and everything, and the benchmark will be set at a completely different level as compared to coming in second. I haven't seen, and maybe the other panelists can help me out here, I haven't seen too much of information or comparison between a first in class and best in class case studies coming out from China, at least at this point in time, under the new NRDL, and how the pricing pressures and market shares impact that. Would be more than happy to hear from the other panelists on that.
Well, maybe I just should try to chip in again. I would like to use PD-1 as an example. Everybody will claim mine is best in class. In China, I will say price is very sensitive because in China, patients pay a lot of percentage of the cost. In the US, first in class and best in class is important because insurance company pay that. But in China, the price is so important. Getting into the market, there has to be a balance and combination. As for the PD-1 market, you can see that Junxi is the first one in China market. And I don't think that they can claim they did the best on the market, the PD-1. Henry is actually not even top 2, as I think in number 3. look at their sales price. The strategy. I don't want to go into other detail, but I mean, definitely the strategy works for Hengrui, right? Because their sales and profit definitely is the best in the PD-1 world.
Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, let's turn to this is a short panel, so there's a lot we can certainly expand on that, but we're gonna have to skip through a few topics. Let's talk about sort of going global, right? Each of you are deeply involved in deals, cross-border deals, and in terms of now the trend I'm seeing is also trying to establish commercial presence either through partnership or going alone in the US as well, right? What are your thoughts in terms of the hurdle of going to US for Chinese companies? What are some of the strategic initiatives you're taking to use ex-China as a important commercial growth opportunity? What are you trying to aim at, and what are the key things you're doing to build that?
So Paul, maybe I'll chime in on this question. I think for the innovation-driven Chinese biotech companies, the game has to be go global, because as the other panelists have mentioned already, right? It took typically 7 to 8 years and $1 billion to $1.5 billion US dollars capital to develop a drug. Given the current reimbursement environment in China, I think it might be difficult to recoup that investment if you're a for-profit shareholder-owned public company. So that's why I think the game has to be to go to global. That means you have to monetize your discovery and develop your product in the global market, including US, Japan, and Europe, in order to recoup the investment. Otherwise, unless you have a very, very efficient, fast follow-up strategy, because at least you can deal with the so-called target risk, right? So you take less risk, therefore you don't have to worry about the 90% failure rate, which is typical in our industry. And then secondly, if you have already made your discovery in China, and in our case, we actually already started our phase 1 back then in 2016, and we accumulated a certain amount of clinical data. But still, I think the biggest challenge is, how do you convince the global pharma partners, the likes of Merck, J&J, Pfizer, Bristol, Sanofi, Novartis? How do you convince them that the data you generate in China is actually up to standard, right? Because I think that's the first hurdle any company would have to face. How much confidence do you have that you can replicate this kind of clinical data in the US trial or in a global trial that includes enrollment of the US and Europe, which is very high hurdle. I personally think that's probably the highest hurdle for any company based in China you would have to face if you want to form a global alliance. Because that has to do with the conduct of the trial. And also you have to convince the other party that you have this discovery engine, that you're doing either first-in-class or best-in-class science in terms of discovery, right? Finding the right molecule, finding the right biologic target. So you're gonna have to show people that not only do you have this kind of clinical data, but you also have a good team in scientists who can actually show that to your partners, right? We didn't hit this by luck. We actually have very good basic science in terms of biology, pharmacology, safety, animal pharmacology. Because this way you can convince your partners on the other side of the table that you actually have a system, you have a good foundation to discover those biologic targets, and also come up with a molecule that can be developed in a global environment. So I think those two probably are the key challenges in terms of forming a partnership with a global company.
Thank you. Other thoughts?
Yeah, and Paul,
Yep.
Paul, if I can just complement what Ying just said, I completely agree in terms of, taking innovation that's happening in China out to global. There's two key components. One, at least in my experience, having conversations with the big pharmas, one is the science itself, how good the science is and how compelling the data is. But in several cases, and this is, has been an increasing trend, is who are the scientists who are actually working on that science. And, in many cases, what I've seen is, hey, this company is presenting this data or is talking about this molecule, and I know this guy who used to work on this and has gone back to China now and is leading this program and so on and so forth. And those kind of confidence building, conversations and relationships that used to exist back in the US and now have gone cross-border between the US and Europe and China are definitely a compelling reasons why many of these pharmaceutical companies are also now looking towards China for innovative molecules, at least in our experience, because they know these people who, have gone back, and teams who have gone back and have worked on this. They have worked hand in hand previously, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, across the same lab bench on the same kind of science. And now, it's coming out of China. So that kind of confidence that is coming back to those conversations is definitely important, along with the science that is coming out of China at this point.
Well, I may adding to I think I took also in totally agree with you what you just statement. For me, I think from IMAB point of view, go out of China and go global is not nice to have. It's have to have for biotech company in China, especially in current situation. You have to be successful. You have to be science driven, right? But I don't think a China-based biotech has any issue with that, because you look at the pharma biotech in the US, the leading scientists most likely are Chinese scientists. So that's no disadvantage. The problem, I will say, one is you have a good science, you have to able to clearly communicate it to the global potential partnership. That's one thing which I view the China biotech company has some disadvantage. Another one is, as Ying just mentioned, the development, how you do it, the quality and the strategy has to be able to communicate it and look at outside of your comfort zone to get something which is the global partner wanted. I see a lot of potential, previous case, a very good target, and biotech company in China will be focusing on China-focused disease, which is totally fine. But when you try to go out to talk to the partner, and they will scratch their head, why you are not doing the other disease, which I'm not interested, which then I can give you, billions instead of millions. So that kind of sense, which when biotech in China, if you do have global, going out of China, go global strategy, the whole development strategy, commercial strategy, every piece has to fall into one perfect place to be successful. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it's very, very important that you have China for China and the China for global. I think when we're working for the multinational, that was the token, and I think it's very real for the biotech company in China right now is evolving to that stage to contribute on a global stage. But if you look at the model right now, at least from my observation, the China for global most through a global partner, right? So not really a sort of a full fringe of clinical, maybe some of us is a clinical, but on at least like commercialization, sales marketing side, you really have to go through with a partner at this stage. So I think the model is you license out your product, you find a credible partner in the US or Europe, and then you try to monetize that way. And as a sort of first step, at least I would see. But yeah, you're right. That's the way you do credible science. You have a clear communication strategy, and also you really have offer value on the program through other keys to this. And I have also have an interesting thoughts on the disease profile. The China disease versus the Asian disease versus the Western disease profile. They are different. Some of those they are different. And that's maybe an opportunity that for company differentiate the value, right? You can, maximum value in terms of the disease, the dominant disease in China or in Asia, and then you leverage a partner for the other disease profiles in US or Europe, and that way you can maximize value for the targets or the therapy.
Great. Well, that's terrific. Let's take this sort of business model conversation one step further, and if I may ask, 5 years from now, can you each describe what your company would look like? What kind of a company would your company be? Whether it's portfolio, whether it's revenue level, whether it's geographic presence, whether it's disease area presence, right? 5 years from now, how would we recognize or know, Harbor or IMAB or JW or Legend? What do you think your company would be known for 5 years from now? What would you be successful for? What is your business model?
Maybe I take the first swipe myself.
I was gonna say, Wei Ming, start first. You just did a big old deal with AbbVie. Tell us tell us what you're thinking. You must have thought about that a lot.
Well, I mean, company definitely has put a lot of thought about the future development, especially about US, which is US is a really important piece of IMAB cooperation development. So I would say in the future, in 5 years, the company has continuously and consistently expanding US team at this moment, focusing on development, clinical development, and biomarker, all this kind of research things, because that's what our innovative product stage is now. So in 5 years, I think that our first product will be on the market. So currently, as we all know, that our first product will go through partner with AbbVie. So we will work with them, and then at least one of our product will be have a successful commercial operation. That's one of the one way for IMAB to learn from our partner to do the commercial. The commercial is not, especially global commercialization, is not what IMAB's strengths now, but IMAB is continuously generating a lot more clinical products. Especially, we have 8 programs moving into clinical trial very soon. Some of the product, when we are ready, our commercial is ready, we will develop, have our own commercial. So hopefully by then, by 5 years, we will start to build our commercial operation, and then we, to build IMAB as end-to-end biopharma company, just like what the Japanese company did in maybe 20 years ago. Started from small partnership and then become Takeda.
Did you say become Takeda?
Like Takeda light our company. Yeah.
Yeah. Very good. All right. Good vision. Ying, you want to go also? You also had a big partnership with J&J already in place, internal product.
Okay, since we're a public company, maybe I should actually read our safe harbor statement first, because what I will say next is not necessarily, that's something we're going to promise to our investors. But all that aside, I think in 5 years, we're hoping to obviously have commercialized both our CAR-T in the US, in Europe, with the help from J&J, our global partner. And then we will also, hopefully potentially get the approval from CD, and then we'll get that product down to the market. But I think more importantly, I think if you look at our own pipeline as a CAR-T company, we'll continue to focus on 2 fronts. One is we're trying to see if we can push the allogenic approach. I don't know which approach will be successful in the clinic, but I think we're hoping to push one approach into mid to late stage development. As I mentioned that given the pricing and reimbursement environment in China today, allo is likely to be the solution to that problem. So we're hoping to, hopefully solve the puzzle of allogeneic CAR T. And then the other front, we're also working very hard, in our lab by our team of scientists, is that we're trying to also crack the solid tumor game, right? That is, you have seen a lot of success in clinical data for hematology malignancies such as lymphoma, leukemia, and multiple myeloma. But solid tumor is a much bigger market. So far, I don't think we have seen much convincing clinical data yet for CAR T to work as a treatment for solid tumor. So I'm hopeful in 5 years we can make some discovery that actually enables CAR T to become a potential treatment for solid tumor indications. So those are the two, I think, important fronts we're working on. And that's something we hope to bear fruition in the next 5 years.
That would be fantastic. Yeah, tremendous accomplishment. That would be, yeah. Thank you, Ying. Wenjin, and then we'll close with Atul.
Thank you. So our inspiration is, as I said, without the safe harbor statement, okay, it's really to be a leading cell therapy based companies, and we were starting from our first product, CD19 CAR T in China. Okay, we want to maximize the value to the clinical value, also value to the patients as well. And we will continue to expand our portfolio and technology base in hemo and the solid tumor malignancies, and also with new technology as well. The allogeneic approach, gene editing, all sorts of things that are coming through, the very exciting things coming through the science front. And we're looking to opportunity to expand to Asia and worldwide as well. On the next the wave of the products. So I think it's important that we're looking both at the Chinese market and also on the global opportunity as well. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mm-hmm.
Good. So again, tagging along on the safe harbor statement as always, for us looking forward into the next 5 years, I think it's going to be exciting times, both from a company perspective as well as from the China opportunity perspective, because we have two really exciting opportunities, really exciting assets that are in clinical trials, the dry eye disease, as well as the FcRn that will be commercializing within that time span. So, with all that we discussed in terms of innovation, in terms of opportunity, in terms of pricing and everything, that is going to be really important for us in the next 3 to 5 years. In addition to that, we'll have our own internal CTLA-4, anti-CTLA-4 antibody that is, a global approach. So we have clinical trials in, across the world, starting at this point in time, phase 1 ongoing. So those would, again, be very close to commercial launch or so at that point in time. So from that perspective, again, exciting times ahead. And then finally, on the back end of things, we have several different innovative molecules that we expect to kind of graduate from preclinical into the clinic in that time span. We have anti-CCR8 antibody and others that are really exciting, innovative, potentially game-changing, either by monotherapy or combination therapy that eventually should come to fruition and come to market in a span of time. So overall, I think very positive on the company front, significant progress, graduating again from a R&D organization to a commercial organization with footprint and sales and other things coming up, but then also very optimistic on the China side of things as the policies evolve, as the pricing evolves, and as the innovation evolves across China and across the world.
That's terrific. Thank you, Atul, as well. Wow. All right. I think we'll wrap this up on time. I learned a great deal from you. I think it's fair to say this is a renaissance of a pharmaceutical market in China, and certainly for Chinese players to be on the global stage. Certainly the China market has a lot of patients, has a lot of unmet needs, has accelerated the policy reforms. Certainly has its pricing challenges, but I think companies are facing it with innovative products, are coming up with a lot of terrific both domestic and global strategies. Gives us a lot of hope
Thank you, everyone.
I want to take the privilege as the host to extend one more question. I wonder if you have noticed that all four companies were incorporated in 2016 and went public on NASDAQ or Hong Kong Exchange. Would you mind share just one sentence? Why do you think it's a coincidence, or have you observed something that made this a kind of destiny? Maybe we can start from Adu.
Yeah, I think, overall, it seems like a coincidence, but again, looking at the external markets and the opportunity and everything, I think it was the right time, at least from a Harbor perspective, to go to the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. I mean, looking at 2020, we raised with the IPO plus some other funding rounds, we raised about $400 million in total. And the speed with which things are progressing within the Harbor portfolio, and the excitement and the investment from the market perspective to really invest in biotech and healthcare throughout 2020 has been one of the drivers, at least for us, to go to the market at the end of the year.
Wenjin?
Yeah, I think that's really a combination of several factors. The advance of science, the regulatory reform in China, the support of the capital markets, and also that opens up the Hong Kong, the 18A, the route, and also the US NASDAQ as well, the capital market support. I think that's all the combination of this, and coming with a sort of I would say a golden era for the biotech, and we are very fortunate to be part of it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, for us, I think it's because it's time for us to become public, because we were founded by our parent company, but then with the product advancing into registration trial and now BLA filing stage, we need a lot more capital to fund the 50% of the share. We have a 50-50 partnership with J&J. So it's a combination of the need for capital and also the more mature stage of development that leads us to decide to go public in 2020.
Okay. Maybe we lost women already.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for all the speakers for your terrific input for this panel discussion. And you're welcome to stay here if you wanted to hear the rest of the talks. And we will give the floor to the virtual floor to the second panel speakers. Thank you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.